They say you can't protect your children forever, that someday you have to let them fall and pick themselves back up. I built a billion-dollar empire believing I could prove that wrong. The Tuesday afternoon I got the call from my daughter, I learned the hardest lesson of my life. Sometimes the person you're really protecting isn't your child. It's yourself. The glass conference table reflected the Miami skyline like a mirror. 42 stories below, the city moved in patterns I'd learned to read over 25 years. The rhythm of commerce, the pulse of money changing hands, the invisible currents that separated those who built empires from those who dreamed about them. I sat at the head of the table in my corner office at Apex Logistics International, surrounded by men in expensive suits who were trying very hard not to stare at the woman who'd just closed a $50 million deal before lunch. The Japanese delegation across from me maintained their poker faces, but I'd been reading boardrooms since before most of them were born. I could see the impressed glances, the subtle nods, the slight relaxation in their shoulders that meant we had an agreement. "Mrs. Wilkinson," Tanaka-san said, his English precise and measured, "your terms are acceptable. We will proceed with the partnership." I didn't smile, not yet. "I'm pleased we could find common ground, gentlemen. My team will have the contracts ready for review by Friday." That's when my phone vibrated. I ignored it. Rule number 1, never let them see you break focus. The phone buzzed again. Then again. My executive assistant, Patricia, knew better than to interrupt unless... The conference room door opened. Patricia stood there, her face pale, her professional composure cracked at the edges. "Mrs. Wilkinson, I'm sorry, but it's urgent. Your daughter called from a payphone. She said..." Patricia's voice dropped. "She said it's an emergency, about Ruby." My granddaughter. 4 years old. The kind of joy that makes you remember why you fought so hard to build a life in the first place. I stood smoothly, my hand already reaching for my phone. "Gentlemen, please excuse me. A family matter requires my immediate attention. Mr. Thornton will ensure you have everything you need." I looked at James, my CFO, 20 years of trust passing between us in a single glance. He nodded, understanding without words. Tanaka-san stood, bowing slightly. "Of course, Mrs. Wilkinson. Family first, yes?" "Always," I said, already moving toward the door. The word tasted like a lie. How many school plays had I missed? How many bedtime stories had I delegated to nannies? How many times had I chosen the empire over the people I built it for? I was about to find out the cost of those choices. Bayfront Park in late afternoon light is almost beautiful. Almost. The sun turns Biscayne Bay into liquid gold. Sailboats drift like white birds on the horizon, and tourists take pictures they'll post on social media with captions about paradise. But I wasn't seeing paradise when I pulled up to the curb in my black Mercedes. I was seeing my daughter sitting on a park bench like a piece of discarded furniture. 3 suitcases. That's what 34 years of life apparently fits into when someone decides you don't belong anymore. Tara sat on the weathered wood slats with her shoulders curved inward, like she was trying to disappear into herself. Ruby pressed against her mother's side, one small hand clutching a stuffed rabbit, the other wrapped tight around Tara's arm. I got out of the car before my driver could open the door. My heels clicked on the concrete path, each step measured, controlled, because if I ran, if I showed the panic clawing at my chest, I didn't know if I could hold myself together. "Mom," Tara's voice was barely a whisper. Her eyes were swollen, red-rimmed. She'd been crying for hours. Ruby looked up at me with those wide brown eyes that were pure Tara at that age. "Grandma, when are we going home?" The question hit like a physical blow. I knelt down, my expensive skirt be damned, and smoothed a curl behind Ruby's ear. "Soon, sweetheart. Real soon." I looked at my daughter. "What happened?" Tara's breath hitched. "Harrison fired me this morning. He said there were discrepancies in my reports, financial irregularities I never..." Her voice broke. I tried to explain, but he wouldn't listen. He had security escort me out, in front of everyone. Coastal Cargo Solutions, the logistics company where I'd gotten Tara a position 4 years ago as director of operations, where her father-in-law Harrison Cole played CEO like it was his personal kingdom, where my daughter had worked 70-hour weeks trying to prove herself worthy of a name that should have been hers by merit, not marriage. "And Derek?" I asked, though I already knew. A woman doesn't end up on a park bench with her child because her husband stood by her side. "He came home 2 hours ago." Tara's hands twisted in her lap. He said his father had no choice, that I'd embarrassed the family, that I needed to leave. He said. She looked at Ruby, then back at me, and I saw something break behind her eyes. He said I don't fit with what the family needs. The words hung in the humid Miami air. I don't fit. Like my daughter was a piece of clothing that didn't match the outfit. Like 34 years of being brilliant and kind and capable didn't matter because she had the audacity to have my blood running through her veins. Get in the car, I said. My voice came out calm, measured. Too calm. Inside, something was crystallizing into ice. Mom, I don't have anywhere to... Tara Marie Wilkinson. I used her full name, the one I'd given her when her father walked out, and I swore no man would ever define either of us again. Get in the car, my daughter nodded. Ruby scrambled down from the bench, still clutching her rabbit. I helped load the suitcases into the trunk while my driver held the door. The weight of them, everything Tara owned, reduced to bags you could carry, made my jaw clench. As we pulled away from that bench, I looked back once. The wood slats where my daughter had sat like abandoned cargo. The trash bin nearby overflowing with tourists' empty dreams. The city kept moving, kept shining, kept pretending it was paradise. They had no idea what was coming. My house in Coconut Grove sits behind gates and walls and carefully manicured hedges that cost more than most people's mortgages. I built it 15 years ago, after Apex hit its first billion in revenue. Every beam, every tile, every window was my choice. No husband to please. No one to tell me the library was too big or the office wasn't necessary. It was mine, and now it was theirs. Ruby fell asleep in the car, exhausted from crying she didn't understand. I carried her upstairs to the guest suite while Tara followed silently, a ghost in her own life. The room had been waiting. It always had been. Fresh flowers on the nightstand, Egyptian cotton sheets, a view of the bay that cost more than the house I'd raised Tara in. I laid Ruby in the bed, still clutching her rabbit. She didn't stir. The bathroom's through there, I told Tara quietly. There's a robe, toiletries, everything you need. Take a bath. I'll order dinner. I'm not hungry. I didn't ask if you were hungry. I softened my tone. Baby, you need to take care of yourself. For Ruby. Tara nodded mechanically. She disappeared into the bathroom. A moment later, I heard water running. Then, barely audible through the door, the sound of my daughter crying. I stood there in the hallway, hand on the doorknob, every instinct screaming to go in, to hold her, to tell her everything would be okay. But I'd learned a long time ago that some tears need to fall in private. Some pain is too raw for witnesses. Instead, I went downstairs to my office and made a phone call. The bourbon was Pappy Van Winkle, 23 years old, worth more than most people paid in rent. I poured 2 fingers and stood at my office window, watching the sunset over Biscayne Bay. The lights of the city started to flicker on, one by one, like stars falling to earth. My laptop sat open on my desk. I'd been staring at the Coastal Cargo Solutions financial dashboard for 30 minutes, and what I saw there made the bourbon taste like ash. 5 years ago, Harrison Cole came to me desperate. Coastal Cargo was drowning in debt, mismanagement, and bad contracts. He needed $3 million to stay afloat. He offered me a partnership, 20% equity for the cash injection. I'd smiled, shaken his hand, and signed papers that gave me 70% ownership through a web of shell companies so complex it would take a forensic accountant months to untangle. Apex Logistics International, Zenith Holdings, Summit Capital Partners, layers upon layers, all leading back to me. Harrison thought he was CEO. He thought he'd rebuilt the company with his own vision, his own hands, his own brilliant business sense. He had no idea he'd been playing in my sandbox the entire time. I'd done it for Tara. A testing ground. A place where she could prove herself without the Wilkinson name opening every door. Where I could watch from the shadows and make sure my baby girl was safe. Except she wasn't safe. Was she? I pulled up the personnel files. Tara's performance reviews. Glowing, every single one. Revenue growth in her department, up 32% in 2 years. Client satisfaction scores, top 5% company-wide. Then I opened the incident reports filed today. Financial discrepancies. Unauthorized account access. Suspected embezzlement. All lies. All perfectly documented lies with fabricated evidence and convenient timestamps. I picked up my phone and dialed Robert Hayes. He answered on the first ring. Retired FBI, Economic Crimes Division, now the best private investigator money could buy in South Florida. Hayes. Robert, it's Yvonne Wilkinson. I need you to dig into something for me. Coastal Cargo Solutions. Every financial transaction for the past 6 months. I need to know where the money's going and who's moving it. Timeline? 72 hours. He whistled low. That's fast work. I'll pay for fast. I need to know if I'm looking at fraud or if I'm being paranoid. Understood. I'll call you Thursday. I hung up and opened another file on my laptop. Derek Cole, Harvard Business School, class of 2015. Married my daughter in 2021. Charming, handsome, the kind of smile that made you want to trust him. I'd run a background check before the wedding, of course. Clean as a whistle. Not even a parking ticket. Maybe I should have dug deeper. Maybe I should have asked why a Harvard MBA was content to work as his father's assistant instead of building his own empire. Maybe I'd been so focused on building walls around my business that I forgot to guard the doors to my family. The office door opened. Tara stood there in the white robe, her hair wet, face scrubbed clean. She looked 16 again. Lost. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. She crossed to the window, stood beside me. We looked out at the city together, the empire I'd built brick by brick, deal by deal, sacrifice by sacrifice. Do you think I'm a failure? Her voice was so small I almost didn't hear it. What? Derek said, he said I never really earned my position, that you probably got it for me, that without the Wilkinson name I'm just... She stopped, swallowed hard. Maybe he's right. Maybe I don't fit in that world. I set down the bourbon, turned to face my daughter fully. Tara Marie, look at me. She did, those brown eyes swimming with doubt. You are not a failure. You are brilliant. You grew that operations department by 1/3. You landed the Martinez contract everyone said was impossible. You did that. Not me. Not the Wilkinson name. You. Then why did Harrison fire me? Because, I said slowly, choosing my words with the same care I used to negotiate billion-dollar deals. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you most. And sometimes the only way to survive is to burn the whole house down and start over. Tara blinked. What does that mean? I looked back at my laptop screen, at the financial dashboard showing millions of dollars flowing through a company Harrison thought was his, at the personnel files of a daughter who'd been set up to fail, at the empire I'd built in the shadows while everyone looked at the light. It means, I said, that Harrison Cole made a mistake when he came after my family, and I'm going to make sure he understands exactly how expensive that mistake was. Thursday morning, I walked into Coastal Cargo Solutions like I owned the place, which technically I did, but Harrison didn't know that, and I intended to keep it that way a little longer. The office occupied the 15th floor of a Brickell Avenue tower. Glass walls, exposed ductwork, the kind of industrial chic design that screamed, "We're innovative," while hiding the fact that most logistics companies were built on backbreaking labor and razor-thin margins. The receptionist looked up, surprised. Mrs. Wilkinson, we weren't expecting... Is Harrison in his office? I smiled pleasantly, the smile that had closed 1,000 deals and buried 100 competitors. Yes, but he's in a meeting. I was already walking past her. This won't take long. Harrison's office took up the corner, all windows and expensive furniture that I knew for a fact came from the operations budget. He sat behind his desk, phone to his ear, salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, tailored suit that probably cost $5,000. When he saw me, his expression flickered, surprise, calculation, then a smooth smile. He held up one finger. Wait, I waited, stood in his doorway like a visitor in my own company. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, then set it down. Yvonne, what a pleasant surprise. Harrison, I stepped into the office, closed the door behind me. We need to talk about Tara. His face arranged itself into something approximating concern. I was hoping you'd come by. Sit, please. I didn't sit. You fired my daughter. I had to. He stood, came around the desk, the picture of regretful authority. Yvonne, you know I care about Tara. But there were serious financial irregularities in her department. Money missing. Reports that didn't match the accounting. I had no choice. Show me. I'm sorry? The evidence. Show me what you found. Harrison hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Then he opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, handed it to me. I flipped through it. Transfer authorizations with Tara's signature. Account access logs showing late-night activity. A memo from the accounting department flagging suspicious transactions. It looked perfect. Too perfect. "These transactions," I said, pointing to a page. "They're dated March 15th through March 22nd. "That's correct." Tara was in Seattle those dates, at the West Coast Logistics Conference. I saw the photos. I looked up at him. "How did she authorize transfers from Seattle when the system logs show Miami IP addresses?" Harrison blinked. I watched the calculation happen behind his eyes, the realization that I'd done my homework, that I wasn't just an emotional mother defending her child. The investigation is ongoing. Perhaps there's an explanation. Perhaps." I closed the folder, set it on his desk. "Or perhaps someone made a mistake. Either way, I hope this doesn't affect our relationship, Harrison. You and I have worked together for years, built something special." "Of course." Relief flooded his features. "I'm glad you understand. Business is business. Family is family." "Exactly." I moved toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. These financial discrepancies you mentioned. How much money are we talking about?" "The audit is still ballpark. 200,000, maybe 250. I nodded slowly. "That's a lot of money to go missing. You'll keep me updated on the investigation?" "Absolutely." I left him there, walked back through the office where people who'd watched my daughter get escorted out by security now pretended to be busy with their work. Cowards. All of them. In the elevator, I pulled out my phone, opened the real Coastal Cargo financial system, the one Harrison didn't know I could access, the one that showed every transaction, every transfer, every penny moving through the company. Missing money. He was right about that. Just wrong about who took it. That night, after Tara and Ruby were asleep, I sat in my office with a bottle of wine I didn't drink and spreadsheets that made my blood run cold. Robert Hayes had sent his preliminary findings. I'd told him 72 hours, but the man was efficient, and when you paid premium rates, you got premium service. The email subject line, "You need to see this." I opened the attached files. Coastal Cargo Solutions, 6 months of financial transactions. Hayes had highlighted the irregularities in red. $2.3 million. Gone. Not 200,000 like Harrison claimed. 2.3 million. Siphoned off in increments small enough that individual transactions wouldn't trigger automatic fraud alerts, but large enough that over 6 months, the company was bleeding out. The money flowed to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Account holder, HC Enterprises, LLC, Harrison Cole. His initials, his company, his theft. I sat back in my chair, mind racing through the implications. Harrison had stolen $2 million from a company he thought was his own. Then, when someone might have noticed, he blamed Tara, fabricated evidence, fired her publicly, made her the scapegoat for his own crimes. And Derek, my son-in-law who'd kicked my daughter out without a second thought? I clicked through to the next page of Hayes' report. The offshore account had a second authorized user, D. Cole. Derek wasn't just complicit, he was a partner. They'd planned this together, father and son. Steal from the company, frame Tara, eliminate any witnesses to their fraud. Clean, efficient, ruthless. They just didn't know who they were stealing from. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk about Tara, about custody of Ruby. You have 48 hours to respond before I file. Derek." I stared at the message. Then at the spreadsheets showing $2 million stolen from my company. Then at the family photo on my desk. Tara at Ruby's 4th birthday party. My daughter's smile so genuine, so trusting. They thought they held all the cards. They thought the Cole name and Harrison's reputation and Derek's Harvard degree made them untouchable. They forgot something important. I didn't build an empire by playing fair. I built it by being smarter, tougher, and more ruthless than every man who underestimated me. Harrison Cole and Derek Cole had just declared war on the wrong woman. I picked up my phone and called Hayes back. "I need everything," I said when he answered. "Every transaction, every account, every piece of paper trail. And I need to know about Derek. Everything he's done, everywhere he's been, everyone he's screwed over before he married my daughter." "How deep do you want me to dig?" I looked at the text message threatening to take my granddaughter away, at the spreadsheets showing calculated theft, at the empire I'd built in secret while they played pretend. Deep enough to bury them, I said. Then I hung up and did something I hadn't done in 25 years. I poured myself another drink and let myself feel the full weight of my rage. Because tomorrow, the real work began. Tomorrow, I stopped being the protective mother. Tomorrow, I became the weapon. Friday morning arrived with the kind of brutal sunshine that makes Miami feel like a punishment. I'd been up since 4, reading Hayes's preliminary report for the 3rd time, memorizing every transaction, every date, every lie. Ruby's laughter drifted down from upstairs. I heard Tara's voice, softer, reading a story. For a moment, I let myself just listen. This was what I'd built the empire for, wasn't it? Moments like these. Safety, security. The kind of life where my daughter could read her daughter a story without worrying about where they'd sleep tonight. Except Tara was worrying. I could hear it in the pauses between words, the way her voice caught on the happy endings. I made coffee. Strong, black, the way I'd learned to drink it during those first years building Apex when sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. When Tara came downstairs 20 minutes later, Ruby still in pajamas and asking for pancakes, I had breakfast waiting. "Ruby, sweetheart," I said, "why don't you go watch cartoons in the living room? Grandma has special juice boxes in the fridge." "The pink ones?" Ruby's eyes went wide. "The pink ones." She scrambled off, clutching her stuffed rabbit. The second she was out of earshot, Tara's smile collapsed. "Mom, I can't keep doing this. Pretending everything's okay. She keeps asking when we're going home, and I don't know what to tell her." I poured her coffee, slid the mug across the kitchen island. "Tell her the truth. You're building a new home. A better one." "With what?" Tara's voice cracked. "I don't have a job. I don't have savings. Derek controlled all our accounts. I don't even have a car anymore. It was in his name." She laughed, bitter and broken. 34 years old, and I have less than I did at 18. You have me. I can't live off you forever, Mom. That's not... She stopped, looked away. "I need to stand on my own feet." "I know." I took a breath, chosen my next words carefully. "But first, I need you to be honest with me. No shame, no hiding, just truth. Can you do that?" Tara nodded slowly. "In the past 6 months, did Derek ask you to sign any documents? Anything at all?" Her brow furrowed. "The mortgage refinance. He said we were getting a better rate, needed my signature." "Did you read the papers before signing?" The silence stretched, then quietly. "No. He said we had to send them back that day or we'd lose the rate. I was at work. He brought them by the office. I signed where he told me to." "Were there other times?" Tara's eyes closed. "A loan application. He said it was for a business opportunity, something with his father. And God, Mom, I don't even remember all of them. He'd bring papers home. I'd sign them. He was my husband. I trusted him." I reached across the counter, took her hand. "Tara, look at me." She did, tears streaming down her face. "You are not stupid for trusting your husband. You're not weak for signing papers he asked you to sign. You're not a failure for believing someone you loved." I squeezed her hand. "But those signatures? They were used to steal $2.3 million from Coastal Cargo. And when the theft was discovered, they blamed you." The color drained from Tara's face. "What?" I told her everything. The offshore accounts, the fabricated evidence, the systematic theft over 6 months. Derek and Harrison working together to bleed the company dry, then setting her up to take the fall. "I helped them," she whispered. "My signatures, You didn't know. That's the difference between a crime and being a victim." I pulled out my phone, showed her Hayes' report. "But now you do know. So the question is, what are you going to do about it?" Tara stared at the numbers on the screen. 2.3 million. Her signatures, her name on documents she never read, trusting a man who was using her as a shield. "I don't know," she said finally. "What can I do? They have lawyers, money. Harrison has been in this business for 30 years. Derek went to Harvard. My daughter," I cut her off. "You're my daughter, and you're stronger than you think. We'll figure this out together. But Tara, I need you to lead this fight. I can support you, but I can't fight it for you." "Why not?" The question came out like a plea. "You have the power, the connections. You could make this go away. And what would that teach Ruby? I asked softly. That when things get hard, you wait for someone to rescue you? Or that you rescue yourself? Tara wiped her eyes, sat up straighter. I want to fight. I don't know how. Then we'll learn together. I picked up my phone. First step, we talk to someone who's been exactly where you are, someone who survived Derek before you even met him. What do you mean? I showed her the next section of Hayes's report. A name, Vanessa Torres. A photo of a dark-haired woman with careful eyes. Derek's ex-girlfriend, from 2019 to 2020. He did the same thing to her. Manipulation, financial control, isolation. But she got out. Tara stared at the photo. He never mentioned her. Of course he didn't. She was the rough draft. You were supposed to be the finished product. I stood up. Get dressed. We're going to Wynwood. The Wynwood Arts District smelled like spray paint and coffee. That particular Miami blend of gentrification and authenticity fighting for dominance. Murals covered every available surface. Explosions of color that probably cost more than my first car. Vanessa Torres' graphic design studio occupied a converted warehouse, sandwiched between a craft brewery and a yoga studio. The sign outside read Torres Design Company in clean modern letters. Through the window I could see her at a drafting table, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, completely focused on her work. Tara hesitated at the door. Mom, maybe this is a mistake. She doesn't know us. Why would she want to? Because survivors help survivors, I said. Trust me. The bell chimed when we entered. Vanessa looked up and I watched her expression shift. Polite customer service smile, then confusion, then something harder when she really looked at Tara. Can I help you? Her voice was careful, guarded. Miss Torres, my name is Yvonne Wilkinson. This is my daughter Tara. I believe you know her husband, Derek Cole. Vanessa's whole body went still. She set down her stylus slowly. Ex-husband? Not yet, Tara said quietly. But soon. How did you find me? Private investigator. I'm sorry for the intrusion, but we need to talk to you about Derek, about what he did. Vanessa stood, walked to the door, flipped the sign to closed. Then she looked at Tara, really looked at her, and something in her expression softened. You look tired, like you haven't slept in days, like you've been crying and trying to hide it. She gestured to a small seating area in the corner. Sit, I'll make coffee. 10 minutes later, we sat in mismatched chairs while Vanessa told us her story. She didn't dramatize it, didn't cry, just laid out the facts like she was describing a design project that went wrong. I met Derek at an art gallery in November 2019. He was charming, said all the right things. By January, we were living together. She sipped her coffee. That's when it started. Small things at first. Your friends are so negative, babe. They don't get us. Your mom is controlling, trying to keep you dependent. Within 6 months, I barely talked to anyone but him. Tara's hand went to her mouth. He said the same things to me, about my friends from college, about my mom being too involved in my life. It's a script, Vanessa said flatly. I didn't realize it then, but it's a script they all use. Isolate you, make you dependent, then start the financial control. She turned to me. He convinced me to let him handle the bills, said I should focus on my art. He'd take care of the boring stuff. I gave him access to my accounts. How much did he take? I asked. $30,000, my entire savings, plus jewelry from my grandmother, some equipment for my studio. When I confronted him, he said I'd given him permission, that I was being hysterical, that maybe I needed to see someone about my paranoia. Gaslighting, Tara whispered. Textbook. Vanessa looked at her. Let me guess. He made you question your own memory, made you apologize for things that weren't your fault, made you feel crazy for having normal emotional reactions. Every day. Tara was crying now. I thought I was losing my mind. He'd say something hurtful, I'd get upset, and suddenly I was the problem. I was too sensitive, too emotional. I needed to learn to take a joke. Vanessa nodded. And when you tried to leave, what happened? I didn't try to leave. His father fired me. Derek kicked me out. I didn't choose this. You're lucky, Vanessa said. The words were harsh, but her tone was gentle. I had to fight my way out. I tried to leave 3 times. Each time he'd show up with flowers. Apologies. promises he'd been in therapy, that he'd changed. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through old messages, showed us a text thread from April 2021. Derek, I know I hurt you, but I've been seeing Dr. Morrison. Real therapy, not just talk. I understand now what I put you through. Please, just give me a chance to show you I've changed. Tara gasped. He said almost exactly that to me last November. He even mentioned a therapist. Dr. Morrison. There is no Dr. Morrison, Vanessa said. I checked. It's part of the script. The fake therapy, the earnest apology, the promise of change. It's designed to make you doubt your decision to leave, to make you think maybe this time will be different. I'd been silent, watching, listening. Now I asked, what made you finally break free? Vanessa smiled, but there was no humor in it. I recorded him. He didn't know, but I started recording our conversations. And one day, after one of his big apology performances, after I said no, I wouldn't take him back, I caught him on my doorbell camera. The second he thought I couldn't see him, the mask dropped. He was smiling, laughing, like it was all a game. Do you still have the recording? I asked. Of course, insurance. She looked at Tara. Why? What's he doing now? Tara told her. The firing, the eviction, the accusations, and then the text I'd received last night that I hadn't told her about yet. He's threatening to file for full custody of Ruby, I said. Claims Tara's an unfit mother. Vanessa's jaw tightened. Of course he is. It's the ultimate control. You can walk away from a husband. You can't walk away from your child. She stood, crossed to a filing cabinet, pulled out a thick folder. This is everything I have on Derek. Financial records, text messages, photos of the bruises. Not physical, emotional, but I documented the aftermath. The panic attacks, the therapy bills. My lawyer said it wasn't enough to prosecute, but it might be enough to show a pattern. She handed the folder to me. Tara, I called you 2 years ago. Do you remember? Tara's eyes widened. You said I should be careful. That Derek wasn't who I thought he was. I thought you were just a bitter ex. I know, that's what he told you I'd be. Part of the script, poison the well so you won't believe warnings. Vanessa crouched in front of Tara's chair. You're not weak for falling for it. I fell for it too. So did whoever came before me, and there will be someone after you unless we stop him. This isn't your fault, but it is your fight now, and you don't have to fight it alone. Tara looked at her mother, then at this stranger who understood her better than anyone. Will you help us? Testify if we need you? I've been waiting for this call for 2 years, Vanessa said. Hell yes, I'll help. We got back to my house at 3 in the afternoon. Ruby was coloring us the kitchen table with Consuela, my housekeeper, who'd raised more children than most pediatricians. Everything seemed peaceful, safe. Then the doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw a man in a cheap suit holding an envelope. Process server. I knew the type, seen enough of them in my business career. I opened the door. He barely looked at me. Tara Wilkinson? I'm Yvonne Wilkinson. Is Tara Wilkinson present at this address? Tara appeared behind me. I'm Tara. You've been served. He handed her the envelope and walked away. No courtesy, no explanation. Just dropped a bomb and left. Tara's hands shook as she opened it. I watched the color drain from her face as she read. Then she handed it to me without a word. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Emergency motion for temporary custody. I scanned the document. Legal language designed to obscure the cruelty underneath. Derek was filing for divorce. Wanted full physical custody of Ruby. Grounds. Mother's unstable mental state and demonstrated criminal behavior. Attached were exhibits. Photos of Tara looking disheveled. Taken, I realized, the day she was fired and crying in the park. Statements from Coastal Cargo employees claiming she'd been erratic and unreliable. A medical record from her therapist showing she'd sought treatment for anxiety. They'd weaponized her pain. Turned her tears into evidence of insanity. Made her firing look like justified termination of an unstable employee. Mom? Tara's voice was barely audible. They're going to take Ruby. No. Look at this. She pointed to a line I'd missed. Emergency hearing. Monday morning. 3 days from now. If the judge grants temporary custody, Derek gets Ruby while we wait for the full trial. That could take months. I pulled out my phone, called Christine Morgan. She answered on the first ring. Christine, I'm sending you documents. I need you at my house in 30 minutes. What's wrong? Derek Cole just declared war, and we have 72 hours to prepare our defense. Christine arrived with her legal pad and 20 years of experience in family law. She sat at my dining room table reading Derek's petition with the kind of focus that made her worth every penny of her considerable retainer. Ruby was upstairs, asleep. Tara paced the living room like a caged animal. I poured wine nobody drank. Okay, Christine said finally. This is bad, but it's not unbeatable. The emergency custody claim is weak. He's arguing you're a danger to Ruby, but there's no evidence of abuse. No drug use, no violence, just anxiety and job loss, which is normal, I finished. Half the population has anxiety, and I fired her myself for false reasons. Which we can prove, but here's the problem. Christine flipped to another page. Derek's lawyers are arguing that Ruby needs stability. They'll paint a picture. Derek has a stable home, stable income, stable family support. You're living with your mother, unemployed, facing potential criminal charges. Criminal charges? Tara stopped pacing. For what? The embezzlement accusations. Even though they're false, even though no charges have been filed, they'll use it to create doubt. And judges are risk-averse when it comes to children. If there's any question about safety, they err on the side of caution. So he wins, Tara said flatly. He stole from me, lied about me, kicked me out, and he wins because he has a nicer house. Not if we're smart. Christine looked at me. Yvonne, you're going to hate this, but I need to ask. Can you prove Derek and Harrison stole that money? Prove it in court, with evidence that will hold up? Hayes is working on it. We have the account records, but tracing offshore money takes time. We don't have time. We have 3 days. Christine turned to Tara. Which means Monday morning we go in with what we have. Vanessa's testimony showing Derek's pattern, your work performance reviews proving you're competent, and character witnesses. We paint Derek as a manipulator and fight like hell. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, then saw the message. Yvonne, let's talk. Reasonable adults. I'll call in 5 minutes. Derek. I showed it to Christine. She shook her head. Don't answer. Anything you say can be used. I know the law. I looked at Tara. But maybe we should hear what he has to say. Know what we're up against. 4 minutes later, my phone rang. I put it on speaker. Yvonne. Derek's voice was smooth, reasonable. The charming Harvard grad who'd swept my daughter off her feet. Thank you for taking my call. You have 2 minutes. Use them wisely. I don't want this to get ugly. Tara and I are both adults. We can work this out without destroying each other. You filed for emergency custody of my granddaughter. That seems pretty destructive to me. I'm protecting my daughter. Tara's not stable right now. Losing her job, the accusations. It's affecting her ability to parent. Ruby needs consistency. Tara's hands balled into fists. I put a hand on her arm. Stay quiet. Let him talk. What do you want, Derek? A reasonable settlement. The Brickell condo, the one in your name, worth about $4 million. Transfer it to me and I'll drop the custody suit. Tara can see Ruby on weekends. Supervised visits until she gets back on her feet. Everybody wins. $4 million. For my granddaughter. A bargain, really. I could write the check right now. End this nightmare. Give Tara her daughter back. And if I say no? I asked. Then we go to court. And Yvonne, I don't want to do this, but if you force my hand... He paused. There are other photos, other evidence. Things that would be very embarrassing for the Wilkinson family. For Apex Logistics. Do you really want your business reputation tied to a daughter accused of embezzlement? Do you want board members asking questions about your judgment? Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a way out. 24 hours to decide. After that, all bets are off. He hung up. The silence in the room was suffocating. Christine broke it first. That was extortion. We can use... No! Tara's voice cut through. Mom, just pay him. Give him what he wants. I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. Saw her mother staring back. The woman who'd left an abusive husband 30 years ago with nothing but a baby and determination. The woman who'd built an empire because she refused to be controlled by fear. No, I said. Mom, if I pay him, What happens next time? Next man? Next crisis? Do we just keep paying people to leave you alone? I stood, walked to the window. Tara, I spent your whole childhood building walls to protect you. Money walls, power walls, success walls. And you know what? They didn't work. Because the real danger didn't come from poverty or failure. It came from a man who saw your kindness as weakness. I turned back to her. I can't protect you from everything, but I can teach you to protect yourself. And that starts with saying no to extortion. But Ruby needs a mother who fights, not one who surrenders. I picked up my phone, dialed Derek back. He answered immediately. Changed your mind already? Yes, I said. My answer is no. No deal. We'll see you in court. There was a long pause. Then Derek laughed. You're making a mistake, Yvonne. A very expensive mistake. Perhaps, but it's my mistake to make. I hung up. Tara stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Mom, what did you just do? I called his bluff. I sat down beside her. Baby, Derek thinks he holds all the cards. He thinks he can scare us into submission. But he's wrong. We have Vanessa. We have the truth. And on Monday morning, we're going to walk into that courtroom and fight. What if we lose? Then we lose, but we lose fighting. And we teach Ruby that sometimes the right thing is also the hard thing. I took her hand. I can't guarantee we'll win, but I can guarantee that I'll be beside you every step of the way. Not fighting for you, fighting with you. Tara's eyes filled with tears. But for the first time since I'd found her on that bench, I saw something else there too. Fire. Okay, she whispered. Okay, let's fight. Sunday morning, I found Tara in my office at dawn. She sat at my desk, laptop open, surrounded by papers from Vanessa's folder, Hayes's reports, and her own employment records from Coastal Cargo. Couldn't sleep? I asked from the doorway. She looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed but clear, focused. I've been going through everything. The timeline, the signatures, the money transfers. Mom, I signed 12 documents I never read. 12. Each one Derek said was urgent, time-sensitive, couldn't wait. You trusted your husband. I was an idiot. She stood, started pacing. No, that's not right. I wasn't an idiot. I was trained. You know what I realized? Every time I questioned him, every time I asked to read something first, he'd get this look, not angry, disappointed, like I'd hurt him by not trusting him. And I'd apologize. I'd sign the paper to make him happy again. I sat down in the chair she'd vacated, still warm. That's called conditioning. It's called abuse. Tara stopped, turned to face me. I've been making excuses. He manipulated me, yes, but I also let it happen. I ignored red flags because it was easier than admitting I'd made a mistake marrying him. Tara, no, let me finish. She took a breath. You asked me Friday what I was going to do. I said I didn't know, but I do now. I'm going to walk into that courtroom tomorrow, and I'm going to tell the truth. All of it. How he isolated me. How he controlled our money. How he made me doubt myself until I couldn't trust my own judgment. And if the judge gives Ruby to Derek anyway, then at least I'll know I fought. I stood, crossed to my daughter. You're not going to lose Ruby. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise you won't face it alone. I pulled her into a hug. I'm proud of you, baby. Not because you're strong, because you're honest about being scared and doing it anyway. She pulled back, wiped her eyes. Christine's coming at 8 to prep me. Hayes is bringing more evidence. And Vanessa said she'll be there. A small smile. I have an army. You always did. You just didn't know it. Monday morning, Miami-Dade family court felt like walking into a refrigerator. The air conditioning was brutal, the fluorescent lights harsh, the wooden benches unforgiving. Everything designed to make you uncomfortable, to make you want to leave. But we weren't leaving without Ruby. Derek sat with his lawyers at the defendant's table, 3 of them from one of Miami's top family law firms. Expensive suits, leather briefcases, the kind of polish that money buys. Derek wore a navy suit, looked appropriately concerned. The devoted father fighting for his daughter. I sat in the gallery behind Tara and Christine. Vanessa sat beside me, her folder of evidence in hand. Hayes had sent updated financial reports at 6 this morning, We had proof of the theft now, traced all the way to Derek's personal accounts. But Christine said we had to be careful. Criminal accusations in family court could backfire, make us look vindictive. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. We stood. Judge Morrison entered, 50s, African-American, reputation for being fair but tough. She didn't tolerate games. I took that as a good sign. Please be seated. We're here for emergency motion regarding custody of minor child Ruby Cole, age 4. Judge Morrison looked over her reading glasses. Mr. Cole, you filed this motion. I've read your petition. Make your case. Derek's lead attorney stood. Your Honor, my client is deeply concerned about his daughter's welfare. Since Mrs. Cole lost her employment under troubling circumstances, she's been living with her mother. While we appreciate Mrs. Wilkinson's support, the situation is unstable. Mrs. Cole has no independent income, no permanent residence, and is currently under investigation for financial crimes. Is Mrs. Cole charged with any crime? Judge Morrison asked. Not yet, Your Honor, but... So no. Continue, the lawyer faltered. Additionally, we have concerns about Mrs. Cole's mental health. She's been in therapy for anxiety. Many people are in therapy, counselor. That's not grounds for removing a child. I allowed myself a small breath of hope. Judge Morrison wasn't buying the easy narrative. Derek's lawyer presented their evidence anyway. The photos of Tara crying, the witness statements from Coastal Cargo employees. A psychologist who'd never met Tara but would testify that job loss and financial instability can impair parenting capacity. Then it was our turn. Christine stood. Your Honor, this isn't about protecting a child. It's about punishing a woman for leaving an abusive marriage. I'd like to call Tara Wilkinson to testify. Tara walked to the witness stand. Her hands shook as she was sworn in, but her voice was steady. Christine started gentle. Mrs. Cole, how long were you married to Derek? 3 years. And during that marriage, did Derek control your finances? Yes. He said it was easier if he managed everything. I had access to a credit card for groceries and gas, but I didn't see our bank statements. Didn't know how much we had. Did you think that was unusual? At first, but Derek said it was normal, that his parents did the same thing, that it was just easier for one person to handle bills. Tara's voice got quieter. I wanted to be a good wife, so I trusted him. When did you find out about the money he took? Friday. My mother's investigator traced $2.3 million stolen from Coastal Cargo. Money that went into accounts Derek controlled, accounts I didn't know existed. Derek's lawyer shot up. Objection. This is a custody hearing, not a criminal trial. It speaks to character, Your Honor, Christine said. Mr. Cole claims he's the stable parent, but he's currently under investigation for embezzlement and fraud. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Is that true, Mr. Cole? Derek stood. Your Honor, those are baseless accusations. My wife is trying to deflect from her own. I asked you a question. Are you under investigation? A pause. Then, the matter is being reviewed. Sit down. Judge Morrison turned back to Tara. Mrs. Cole, why do you believe your husband filed for custody? This was it, the moment Christine had prepared her for. Tara took a breath. Because I filed for divorce first. Because I told him I knew about the money. And because Ruby is the only thing he knows I can't live without. Her voice broke. He doesn't want Ruby because he loves her more than I do. He wants her because it's the only way to control me now that I've left. That's a serious accusation. I have proof. Tara looked at Christine, who nodded. Saturday night, Derek called my mother. He said he'd drop the custody suit if she transferred a $4 million property to him. When she refused, he threatened to destroy our family's reputation. That conversation was recorded. Christine played the audio. Derek's voice filled the courtroom, smooth and reasonable, offering his deal, threatening consequences. When it finished, Judge Morrison's expression was granite. Mr. Cole, did you attempt to extort Mrs. Wilkinson? Derek's lawyers huddled. Finally, Your Honor, my client was attempting to negotiate a settlement. That's not what I asked. She turned to Derek directly. Did you offer to drop this custody suit in exchange for money? Derek's jaw worked. I suggested a way to resolve things without court. By demanding $4 million. Judge Morrison wrote something on her notepad. Ms. Morgan, do you have other witnesses? Yes, Your Honor, Vanessa Torres. Vanessa took the stand, told her story. The same patterns, the same manipulation, the same fake apologies. She showed the doorbell camera footage, Derek's mask dropping the second he thought no one was watching. He did this before, Vanessa said. And if you give him Ruby, he'll use her to torture Tara for years. Not because he's a devoted father, because he's a predator who can't stand losing control. By the time she finished, Derek's lawyers looked rattled. Derek himself sat rigid, jaw clenched. Judge Morrison took off her glasses. I've heard enough. Here's my ruling. Mr. Cole's emergency motion is denied. Mrs. Cole retains primary physical custody of Ruby. Mr. Cole is granted supervised visitation, 2 hours per week, pending full custody hearing in 30 days. Relief crashed over me like a wave. Tara's shoulders collapsed. She was crying, but this time they were tears of victory. However, Judge Morrison continued, I'm ordering both parents to undergo psychological evaluation. And Mr. Cole, I'm referring this matter to the state attorney's office. If there's evidence of extortion or fraud, that's a criminal matter, not family court. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Tara turned around, found me in the gallery. I stood, went to her, held her while she sobbed. Christine was already on her phone, probably calling Hayes to coordinate with prosecutors. Derek stormed past us, his lawyers trailing. At the courtroom door, he stopped, looked back at me. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, I replied. It is. You just don't know it yet. Wednesday morning, I called an emergency board meeting at Coastal Cargo. Harrison didn't know why. I'd kept my ownership buried for 5 years, but it was time to stop playing in the shadows. The boardroom was full when I arrived. Harrison at the head of the table, looking annoyed. 5 board members I'd appointed through shell companies, and James Thornton, my CFO from Apex, there as financial consultant. Yvonne, Harrison said with forced politeness, I wasn't aware you were joining us today. That's because you don't know who actually called this meeting. I took the seat at the opposite end of the table. Gentlemen, I'm invoking my rights as majority shareholder of Coastal Cargo Solutions to conduct an emergency financial review. Harrison went very still. Majority shareholder? 70% to be precise. Held through Apex Logistics International, Zenith Holdings, and Summit Capital Partners. I nodded to James, who distributed folders. I've owned this company since 2019. You've been working for me, Harrison, the whole time. The color drained from his face. He opened the folder, saw the ownership documents, the chain of holding companies, all leading back to me. You've been, this whole time, He looked up and I saw genuine shock. Why? Because 5 years ago, you needed money. I provided it. And I wanted to see what kind of man was going to be in my daughter's life. What kind of family she was marrying into. So you used her as bait. Harrison's voice hardened. You put Tara in harm's way to test me. The accusation hit harder than I expected. Because he was right. Yes, I said quietly. I did. And that's something I'll have to live with. But Harrison, what you did, stealing $2.3 million, framing my daughter for your crimes, that's something you're going to prison for. He stood. You want to destroy me? Fine, but I'll burn this company down first. Every client, every contract. I'll make sure the business press knows how Yvonne Wilkinson weaponized her own daughter for corporate espionage. Sit down, Harrison. No, you think you've won? You've destroyed both our families. He looked around the table. She put her daughter in danger, used her as a spy. What kind of mother does that? The question echoed in the silent room. What kind of mother indeed? Tara's voice came from the doorway. The kind who thought she was protecting me. Everyone turned. Tara stood there in a business suit, Hayes beside her. Mom did put me in that job, Tara continued, walking into the room. She didn't tell me she owned the company, and yes, that was wrong. But you know what you did, Harrison? You stole from her. You blamed me for it. You helped your son abuse me. So let's be very clear about who the villain is here. She set a folder on the table. Mr. Hayes has traced every dollar you took. We have the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the money you transferred to your son, all of it. Harrison sank back into his chair. My wife is sick. Eleanor has Alzheimer's, early onset. The experimental treatments aren't covered by insurance. So you stole. I kept my voice level. Harrison, if you'd asked, I would have helped. Instead, you committed fraud. And when my daughter got close to discovering it, you destroyed her career to save yourself." He put his head in his hands. For a moment he looked old, broken. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends on you." Thursday, I met Harrison alone at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Coral Gables, public enough to be safe, quiet enough to talk. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 2 days. His suit was wrinkled. He hadn't shaved. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. "You have 10 minutes. I'm sorry for everything. For what I did to Tara, for the theft, for—" He stopped. "I was desperate. Eleanor's care costs $500,000 a year. We've spent our savings, sold our house. I was drowning, and I made terrible choices." "And Derek?" Harrison's face hardened. "I thought I knew my son, but Hayes showed me other women, other thefts. Vanessa Torres, a woman in Seattle, maybe more. Derek's not desperate. He's a predator. Yes, he is. He used my theft to cover his own crimes. Used the company I've spent 30 years building to fund his gambling debts. My son," Harrison's voice cracked. "I don't even know who he is." I sipped my coffee, waited. "Yvonne, I'll resign. I'll pay back what I stole, however long it takes. I'll cooperate with authorities. Just please don't expose Eleanor's condition. She's confused enough. If the press gets hold of it, if she has to face public scrutiny." "I'm not interested in hurting your wife, Harrison, but I need something from you. Anything. Help me put Derek away. Testify about the money he took. Admit he had access to your accounts. Give prosecutors everything they need to build their case." Harrison met my eyes. "He's my son. He's a criminal, and if you protect him now, he'll destroy another woman, maybe another daughter, maybe someone else's Ruby." A long silence. Then Harrison nodded. "Okay, I'll testify. I'll give them everything." "And the resignation?" "Effective immediately. You'll need a new CEO. I'm appointing an outside professional, someone with no connection to either of our families. Clean slate." Harrison almost smiled. "Will you let me at least say goodbye to the team?" "Tomorrow. We'll make the announcement together." We stood. He offered his hand. I looked at it for a long moment, then shook it. "I'm sorry," he said again. "For everything." "So am I, Harrison. So am I." 3 months later, the headlines told the story. Derek Cole sentenced to 8 years for fraud and extortion. Harrison Cole pleads guilty, receives suspended sentence for cooperation. Coastal Cargo Solutions, under new management, stock rises 15%. I sat in my office at Apex reading the articles when Tara knocked on my door. "Got a minute?" she asked. "For you? Always." She sat across from me, looking more confident than I'd seen her in years. She'd started her own consulting firm, Wilkinson Advisory. Small, independent, hers. She'd already landed 3 clients, including one I'd sent her way. Not charity. She'd earned it. "Ruby asked about Derek yesterday," Tara said. "Wanted to know when she'd see Daddy again." "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That Daddy made some bad choices and needs to think about what he did. That we still love him, but we can't be around people who hurt us." She smiled sadly. She asked if that meant she could say no when kids at school are mean to her. I said absolutely. "Good answer. Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay. Do you regret it? Putting me at Coastal Cargo? Using me to watch Harrison?" I'd been dreading this question for 3 months. I set down the newspaper, looked at my daughter. "Yes and no. I regret not trusting you enough to tell you the truth. I regret thinking I could control every variable, protect you from every danger. But do I regret trying to keep you safe? No, never. Even though it backfired? Even though." I stood, came around the desk. "Tara, I spent your whole childhood building walls. Money walls, power walls, success walls. I thought if I built them high enough, strong enough, nothing could hurt you. But you know what I learned?" "What?" "The strongest walls aren't the ones I build around you. They're the ones you build yourself. And you did that. You survived Derek. You fought for Ruby. You built your own company. You did all of that." Tara's eyes filled with tears. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. It would have been harder, and it would have taken longer, but you would have found your way." I pulled her into a hug. I'm proud of you. Not because you're my daughter. Because you're you. She pulled back, wiped her eyes. Vanessa's nonprofit is doing well. We're opening a second location next month. I'm on the board. I also saw the Blackwell Foundation sent them a donation. $500,000, Mom. That'll help hundreds of women. Good. That's what the money's for. My phone buzzed. A text from James. Board meeting in 10. I have to go, I told Tara. But dinner tonight? You, me, Ruby? I'll cook. You don't cook. Consuela will cook. I'll supervise. Tara laughed. Deal. 6 months after everything ended, I took Ruby to the same park bench where I'd found Tara crying with suitcases. We sat together, Ruby with her stuffed rabbit, now more worn but no less loved. The bay sparkled in the afternoon sun. Sailboats drifted. The city hummed with life. Grandma, Ruby said, tell me a story. What kind of story? A story about a princess who saves herself. I smiled. I know one. Once upon a time, there was a princess who thought she needed a prince to be happy, but the prince turned out to be a dragon in disguise. That's scary. It was, but the princess had a secret weapon. What? She had a mother who taught her how to be brave, and a friend who showed her she wasn't alone. And most importantly, she had herself, her own strength, her own voice. And when she finally used it, the dragon had no power over her anymore. Ruby thought about this. Did the princess get a new castle? Better. She built her own. A smaller one, but every brick was hers. Every choice was hers. And she was happy because the castle wasn't a prison. It was a home. I like that story. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Tara walked up, 2 ice cream cones in hand. Thought you two might want a treat. We sat together on that bench, 3 generations of Wilkinson women. We'd survived, we'd fought, we'd won, but more importantly, we'd learned. That strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up. That protection isn't about building walls. It's about teaching someone to build their own. And that the best empire isn't made of money or power. It's made of the people you love and the choice to fight for them every single day.